Welcome to In a Flash Cooking Class. Hi, I'm Barbara Beery. This is my personal favorite. I gotta tell you, this has nothing to do with back to school, nothing to do with healthy snacks, but everything to do with one of my favorite books, and guess what? Now it's a movie. It's called Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and I am crazy about the book. I haven't seen the movie, but I know I'm gonna be crazy about that too, and I am absolutely crazy about meatballs. I think they're one of the most versatile things you can have in your house, and I want to show you a meatball recipe that's simple to make, easy to pop in the freezer, and great anytime you want a good meal of meatballs. So let's get started. First of all, I've got about 1.5 pounds of ground sirloin, and I put about 3 to 4 cloves of garlic minced on top of that. Now the thing I want to also add about this is I am using ground sirloin. If you prefer to use turkey or chicken, you can somewhat alter it. Those are going to be much less rich than this, and you might actually need to incorporate a tablespoon of olive oil to make the meatballs work, but you can use any combination you want. So we've got the beef, and then I have purchased breadcrumbs. They have no flavoring, just plain breadcrumbs. I'm going to add about a 1/4 cup of that into the beef, and then after that I am going to put in some minced onions. Now this is dehydrated minced onions, about 2 tablespoons, and I have just found through the years of cooking with kids and for kids that sometimes that onion flavor is just a bit too strong, and I think the dehydrated kind of melts more into the meatball. So we've got the dehydrated, use fresh minced onion if you choose to do that, about 1/2 an onion. I'm also going to put in about a 1/2 cup of shredded Parmesan cheese, more or less to your taste. I've got a little bit of fresh parsley, which I have to tell you, I just think is great in almost any meatball. You could also add fresh basil if you have some and your kids like the taste of that. And of course, we're going to need a big pinch of kosher salt. About a teaspoon should be just fine. We don't want to over salt. And then about a teaspoon of freshly grated coarse ground pepper. After all of that, we're going to add about 3 to 4 tablespoons of ketchup. Now this helps bind it together, but it also gives it just a little bit of a sweet flavor. You'll never know the ketchup's in there, but it will make them taste delicious. So 3 tablespoons of that ketchup. And last but not least, we need to put an egg in here because this is the true binder, is the egg. And always break your egg individually into a container, a little dish like this, to make sure that there's nothing funny about that egg. Now there's a little spot in there. I'm not going to worry about it, but there's no shell, and that's what I didn't want. So we're going to pour the egg in, and now you've got all the ingredients. Now, you can look at this 2 ways. Either here comes the really fun part, or here comes the really messy part. And I can tell you the kids are going to like it either way you turn it. You can take turns, and you can have the kids squeeze the meat, make sure the egg yolk is broken up, and all of this is mixed very nicely. Now here is the important thing to remember about meatballs. Kids and grown-ups alike sometimes tend to overwork the meat. Don't do that. You will have meatballs that are as hard as rocks. What you want to do is just to barely incorporate all of these ingredients into the meat, and you're done. And I'm done. Then, and I should have done this first, so don't do what I do. I'm going to have to wipe off my hands. You need to put the meatballs on a prepared sheet pan. Didn't quite prepare it the way I should have. I do, however, have it lined with foil, and I've got some olive oil cooking spray that I could not live without, and I'm going to generously spray that. Now, I'll go back to making the meatballs. The meatballs I'm going to make today are going to be about 1 inch to 1.5 inches round, and with about 1.5 pounds of meat, that ought to give you about 20 meatballs, depending on how the size turns out. Now the cool thing about meatballs is not only are they delicious to eat, but you can do so many different things with them. The first thing, of course, I think we all think about is spaghetti and meatballs. But what about one of those giant sub sandwiches, a big sub sandwich lined with meatballs, and you can slice it into pieces for the family? Or the very trendy thing right now, and I'm sure you all have heard about it, is to make meatball sliders. And you can get a little tiny biscuit or a little tiny dinner roll and put one little slider on it. Put some salt and pepper and ketchup and whatever kind of condiments you like, and have little mini meatball sliders. Those are fun for kids, especially for parties. And then you can even do something crazy that I've done in a lot of cooking classes, and that's actually making the meatballs and putting them on a 6-inch wooden skewer baking them on the sheet pan, and then you've got a little meatball kebab. And the other thing that you can do for really young kids is that you can take these meatballs, make them tiny, just barely bite size, and bake them tiny just like this. That's maybe a half an inch. You can see the difference in size. And then when you take them out of the oven and cool them, you can skewer them with the little pretzel sticks, and so they get to eat the skewer too, and it's kind of a fun thing to do. When you get your meatballs made up, then put them in an oven about 400 degrees. I'd say somewhere between 375, 400 degrees. Bake them for about 12 to 15 minutes. Take them out, let them cool, make them up into anything you want, but make a double batch, and then you can keep them in the freezer and pop them out anytime you want to make a quick meal. So remember, the next time you think it might be cloudy with the chance of meatballs, have those in your freezer and you'll be ready for any kind of storm that comes your way. Thanks so much for joining us, and we will see you next time on In a Flash Cooking Class.